Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're going to do something a little bit different today, not super gameplay focused. And just to warn you at the outset of this video, we're going to be analyzing a card that has not yet been officially released yet. It's only been revealed. So if this is something that you want to save until you actually get a chance to play it for yourself or you get the pack in hand, you don't need to keep watching the video. You can save it, come back to it when you actually get the pack. So we recently had this huge card get revealed for Magneto called Children of the Atom. It's a 1-cost support. Play it under any player's control, max 1 per player. Each X-Factor, X-Force, and X-Men character you control gains the X-Factor, X-Force, and X-Men traits. It is a constant effect. It's going to come into play a little bit later. So immediate thing here is that it gives any X-Men hero or X-Men ally access to X-Force traded support. There isn't much of that. But it does give every X-Force hero and every X-Force ally access to X-Men traded support. There is a lot of that. So you can play this on any player around the table. You can play it on yourself. And you can even play this if you're not running an X-Men or X-Force hero. So you could be running any hero, play this, and now all of your X-Men heroes will also have X-Force and X-Factor traits. All of your X-Force allies will have X-Men and X-Factor traits, etc. So if you're running some kind of like ally-focused build and you're not in an X-Men or X-Force hero, you can still run this card. Now this card has so many broad use cases that we're going to I'm not sure if we're going to be able to cover all of them in this video. It is such a deep card in terms of what it allows, but maybe it also has some drawbacks that we'll go over. So first we want to talk about some general ideas of what it allows us to do and how it allows us to basically break the traits that we've been working with up till now. And then I want to talk about maybe what heroes would actually want to be running this card. So what I've got down here is basically all of the X-Men or X-Force traded support. We have all the X-Force allies of various aspects on this line here, all the X-Men allies of various aspects here. We have their related team cards. We have all of the X-Men training cards. Advanced Suit is here. It's not a good card. It's just hanging out here for the sake of completeness. And then we have all sorts of X-Men supports in this stack, all of the team-ups or X-Men events in this stack, X-Men instruction, just because while Children of the Atom does not grant the traits to any allies in your discard or hand or deck that aren't in play, if you're an X-Force hero and you're running some kind of like X-Men ally strategy, you might want to shuffle some X-Men allies back in. So it's a possibility there for you. This is a card that I don't think gets a lot of play, just because there's so many good X-Men allies. You don't really necessarily need to see the same one again. And some of the heroes have their own ways to recur it, or they recur their signature ally with Mutant Education instead. But this is just some way that like maybe an X-Force hero might want to put an X-Men ally back into the deck and then be able to play it, and it still turns on their Uncanny X-Force or something like that. It's really just included here for completion's sake. And then we have 3 side schemes that all gain a benefit if you're an X-Men trait. So now the X-Force heroes or X-Force allies that previously didn't interact with these now interact with these if you have Children of the Atom out. So let's just start breaking things down here. So let's go through our X-Men supports, because I think there is very little in terms of X-Force support. You have IPAC is the only support card locked to X-Force, and then you have their team event. And just about everything else is going to be X-Men traded. So this deck, or this card, is really giving more advantages to X-Force than it is to X-Men, because now X-Force, they get access to a lot of good X-Men cards that X-Men have been benefiting from for 2 years now. So the very first one here is Utopia. It increases your ally limit if all of your allies have the X-Men trait. So with Children of Atom, if you're running all X-Men and X-Force allies, those X-Force allies gain the X-Men trait, you keep your ally limit online. But this is not the most important thing. The more important thing is that after an X-Men ally enters play, you get to exhaust Utopia, ready an X-Men character. Well, that's great. If you're running an X-Force hero that is now getting the X-Men trait from Children of the Atom, you are now an X-Men character to be readied by Utopia. The constant effect of Children of the Atom comes into effect, granting the trait before the response of after an X-Men ally enters play. So you can play an X-Force ally, and it now triggers Utopia. And now you can ready your X-Force hero. You can be running this in an all X-Men deck like you were before, throw in a couple X-Force allies that you might like, and you're still able to trigger Utopia. I think Utopia is one of the strongest cards in the game. Getting heroes that previously didn't have some kind of reliable ready, now reliable ready, and also access to all the best X-Men allies and X-Force and whatnot. This is just, I think, the biggest deal in terms of Children of the Atom. It's basic, you can do it in any aspect. Children of the Atom, Utopia, doing justice, aggression, protection, leadership, pool, whatever. Just very strong. If you just want to run all the 2-cost X-Men allies and X-Force allies like Marrow, and run Utopia and Children of the Atom, you got a really strong baseline deck. You don't even need anything else, really. That's just how it is. Utopia is just that good. Okay, X-Mansion is now able to heal X-Men characters. This means that X-Force allies that might have activation effects, looking at you, Wolfsbane, can now be healed by X-Mansion. So previously you had to put an honorary on someone like Wolfsbane, which like Domino wasn't able to do because Domino doesn't have the X-Men trait to be able to play honorary X-Men. Now Domino can just play Children of Atom, and X-Mansion is able to keep Wolfsbane out all game. In multiplayer, this lets any player trigger the ability. You put Children of the Atom on another player, and now their ally is an X-Men ally, they can flip down and they can trigger your mansion. X-Jet. Exhaust X-Jet, generate a wild resource for a player whose identity has the X-Men trait. So all 6 of the X-Force heroes now get access to X-Jet if you play Children of the Atom. Now that's a pretty expensive X-Jet, and a lot of them have their own resource generators already. Psylocke has resource generators, that kind of thing. So maybe this isn't as strong as Utopia or as necessary, and you could always build support Quinn Carrier in before if you really wanted to for the exact same cost as Children of the Atom. So I'm not sure this is like a huge change, but if you're running Forge and like X-Bunker, Utopia, you may as well throw X-Jet in as well. Okay, Danger Room. After an X-Men ally enters play, exhaust Danger Room, search your deck and discard pile for a training upgrade and attach it to that ally. Any player's alter ego's mutant trait may trigger this ability. This gives X-Force allies access to the X-Men training cards. These are all super strong cards that increase ally hit points and typically 1 or 2 stats. So a lot of these X-Force allies, again, Wolfsbane, would love some kind of buff to their stats, some kind of extra hit points. And now if you have Children of the Atom and you have Danger Room out, you play your Wolfsbane down and she can get mission training from Danger Room because she's now an X-Men character thanks to Children of the Atom. And again, this is another thing that can be triggered in multiplayer. If you play your Wolfsbane down, you have Children of the Atom, and someone else has Danger Room, or you have Danger Room, they can trigger your Danger Room and search their deck and put their training card onto your ally. So neat little multiplayer nuance there. Okay, Cerebro. Already any Mutants player has been able to make use of this card. Psylocke, most notably, loves Cerebro for her Professor X loop and this kind of thing. And of course, when the ally is in your deck, it's not going to get the X-Men trait, like if it's an X-Force ally, so it's not necessarily helpful with that. But if you're running an X-Force hero that's now running only X-Men allies, all of a sudden Cerebro gets pretty good, and we're seeing so many psionic allies right now. We have Legion, we have M, we have Phoenix. There are so many psionic allies that will keep Cerebro as a full deck search for you that this is one to consider if you're typically weren't running Cerebro before, but now you can grab it, so just something to consider there. Okay, iPack is the only X-Force support on this list. There isn't much to say about it. I think like maybe you could run it in Nightcrawler just because he is pretty draw poor. He doesn't necessarily love the extra encounter card, but if that extra encounter card is an attack treachery, he's totally fine with it. And if you watched my Nightcrawler video, I love to run Stepford Cuckoos, reroll anything that's not terrible for him. Sorry, reroll anything that is terrible for him into something that's not terrible for him. So iPack is just a way for you can smooth out a bad hand. I don't know if it's really worth running Children of the Atom for, but it's worth pointing out. A lot of these, there are some rich heroes that love card draw that didn't previously have access to something like this. And then our last support card to talk about, that is trait locked, is Stepford Cuckoos. Play only if your identity has the X-Men trait. Well, guess what? Now the X-Force heroes have access to this. So Cable, bad nemesis, you want to mulligan that nemesis away, boom, Stepford Cuckoos. It is psionic, so you can team building exercise it with Psylocke or Cable or something like that. Once Cable clears Technovirus Purge, then he gets a psionic trait. But Stepford Cuckoos, very strong card, helps you flip to Alter Ego in solo because you can reroll an advanced draw, helps you go past Under Fire, mulligan, exhaustion, anything that's bad for you. Now the X-Force heroes gets access to it. Deadpool, he's another one who can just randomly lose to a bad encounter card draw. Couldn't play Stepford Cuckoos without build support before. Now he gets access to Stepford Cuckoos just by playing Children of the Atom. So something to look out for with the X-Force heroes that they now have access to. Alright, putting those to the side. Now here's our training cards we were talking about. We got 4 training cards, 1 each aspect, and there are a lot of good targets for them in the X-Force side of things that previously weren't available. So we have Cannonball over here. If you're playing Angel, you're typically keeping Cannonball out all game. It's taking 0 consequential. Now you can throw a training card on our buddy Cannonball. And again, any aspect. He's basic. Children of Atom is basic, so you just throw in 1 training card. Probably not protective training because he's already not taking any hit points or any damage from consequential. But like attack training, now he's up to 3 attack. Mission training, now he's up to 3 thwart. Danger room training, now he's 3 or 3. So pretty good here. Pretty good for our boy Cannonball. Deadpool, another one who stays out pretty much all game because you can just put an acceleration token, ignore his defeat. So he's another one, keep him out, put a training on him. If you're Cable, you have your team up now that's always on, and taking damage to your ally doesn't mean as much because you're giving him extra health because of your training upgrade. Deathlock, hero response, can now grab the training upgrade right out of the discard. Don't even need to flip to Alter Ego and use Danger Room. Just grab it right onto him. So very strong there. Let's see, Hope Summers, not the best training target, but Pete Wisdom. He's another one with like self-heal and basic that you can run in any aspect. Now gets a training card, you get him up to 4 thwart. That's pretty good for stuff like Gunboat. If we're looking over here, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, she can get extra health. Although I'm not sure who can actually run her with the training in the Mutant Heroes. I don't think anyone, maybe just Spider-Woman or Adam Warlock, but giving her some extra health gets her some extra cancel if you really want that. Let's see. Over here on the Justice side of things, I think the best one is Wolfsbane, hands down. It's really hard to talk about Feral just because her response is so inconsequential most of the time. Like dealing 1 to 2 damage to the villain after she thwarts is not anything to write home about. I would much rather draw an extra card from Wolfsbane. So Wolfsbane gets mission training. If you have seen like one of my private Magik decks or something like that, Wolfsbane, great with Magik, and I was already running mission training as a one-of, but now she doesn't even need honorary. In terms of our protection, I mean, Elixir isn't that great in the in the first place. You can just run Med Team if you really want, and you're going to get more healing in a shorter span of time and less cost. So I don't really like Elixir in general, but Warpath now gets protective training without honorary, so that's huge because again, these X-Force heroes, they couldn't run honorary before, so now you can do Warpath protective training even if you're starting as an X-Force hero and not necessarily needing an X-Men hero. And we can talk some more about Warpath a little bit later. I think he's got some really cool stuff. In terms of our aggression X-Force allies that we might want to put a training on, well, I don't actually really like these allies too much. I mean, now Richter, he's very similar to Thor ally, who I think is just straight up better. But you can always put aggressive or attack training on him now, and he's up to 3 attack, and then he mills your deck and deals damage to each minion that's engaged with you, if you have any minions engaged with you. Shatterstar, you can keep him out longer with attack training, get some 2 extra health, get some 1 extra thwart activation if you like that, or 1 more minion engagement. Now, currently in the game, there aren't that many effects that really care about minions that are engaged with you versus engaged with other players, and if you're playing solo, it doesn't matter. And he might just kill that minion before it engages with you anyways because he's attacking it. So really difficult to make use of there. I think we'll be ignoring these 3 for most of the video. In terms of our leadership X-Men, well, Domino is freaking phenomenal. There are so many good uses of her, or so many niche uses where it's like, why would I want to swap this card in my hand with the top card of my deck? Well, like at base, maybe you drew into one of those hands where you just have like, well, these are all the good cards, I can't play all of them, let me pass 1 to the next turn and grab a resource card or something like that. If you have double resources still in your deck, you might just go into a resource surplus, and then she interacts with so many different like signature cards like Iceman's Crowd Connect Perception, and now you play her, you get a Danger Room training on her, extra health, extra stats. We love that. Okay, here are some other big ones in terms of trainings. Phantom X stays out all game, being healed by EVA. Cable goes up to 3 thwart. Danger Room training. And now that that's clearing most solo player side schemes or encounter side schemes, because they're usually a 3 threat. So you get Cable, you get Danger Room training, gets an extra health. That's extra card draw over time. X23, she loves the bonus attack from stuff like Danger Room training here. So she goes up to 4 attack. Now she's attacking, readying, attacking again. The extra health helps offset her her second attack, and you can always heal her up with X-Mansion now that she is an X-Men character. So there's a lot of cool uses for these training cards onto X-Force allies, and it's just a matter of like finding the right hero to put them in. But I mean, you can do this now in non-X-Men or X-Force heroes as well. If you have like some kind of like really side scheme focused, maybe like Star-Lord deck, Star-Lord gives Cable +1 thwart with Leader of the Guardians, gets another thwart from Danger Room training, now he's up to 4 thwart, that's pretty good. So there's some niche things. Trying to stay on topic here. Whoa, okay. Let's skip the events for now, and we're going to go into our side schemes. So Generation X, each X-Men character gets +1 thwart while making a basic thwart against a side scheme. Well, now we have something like the aforementioned Cable. It is just clearing that right away. It doesn't even need a training to clear Generation X. And Generation X is such a strong player side scheme that, I don't know, it's going in pretty much all of my Justice decks, X-Men, hero or not nowadays. Because grabbing an identity-specific event, which most heroes have a very strong event as a 1, 2, or 3 copy, grabbing it at the right time can be an absolute game changer. Astonishing X-Men. After an X-Men character defends against an enemy attack and takes no damage, remove 1 threat from the scheme. Okay, so are there any X-Force allies or X-Force heroes that really like to defend or defend and take no damage? Well, one very clear one here is Warpath. Now, defending with Warpath, if he has his tough, is going to trigger Astonishing X-Men. It's not something that I think is really worth like building Children of the Atom into just for that, but it is a neat little byproduct of this interaction. Anytime you have like a hero that's going to be taking no damage, which really the X-Force heroes don't do a lot of that. I mean, Domino can hit some big defends with a probability field. Cable sometimes likes to defend for his Ascani-san, but yeah, there isn't too much extra use out of this, and it's usually just faster to thwart it down anyways. Okay, maybe the bigger one is new recruits. Play only if your identity has the X-Men trait. So now X-Force heroes who now have the X-Men trait can play this side scheme and get these super strong, super cheap allies. So 0 cost, 2 threat. I mean, pretty much every single X-Force hero is clearing that in a single basic activation. and then you get one of the allies. Now we only have one so far, but I think he is maybe one of the best ones in terms of talking about this card right now. So he's 2 cost, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 2 health, and if you have the Mutant or X-Men trait, a null gets +1 thwart and does not count against your ally limit. I'm sure there's going to be another one that's, if you have the Mutant or X-Men trait, he gets +1 attack and yada yada. But this one is absolutely great because that 3 thwart is really good for something like gunboat diplomacy. It's also really good for like Uncanny X-Force. You can get him up to 4 thwart now. So you're running, let's see, who would you be running this with? Maybe, I don't know, maybe just something like Psylocke. You get this guy to hand. Now he's another Cerebro target for you. You can pull out with Cerebro later, and you just get a 3 thwart multi-health ally at any point in time. It's cheaper than Professor X. And you have your Uncanny X-Force out, you play him, and now he has 4 thwarts with Uncanny X-Force, and that's just really strong, I think. Now it's not too much different from 3 thwart, but hey, 4 is a high number. We don't see that very much in the all thwart stat, so very interesting there. Okay, let's move on to maybe talking about some of these events. I don't think all of these are created equal. I'll try to organize them by the team-ups and then by the X-Men event. So the X-Men specific events, which are now playable from the X-Force heroes, these aren't that good, but something to keep in mind. So now, to me, my X-Men is a pretty strong card. We have a bunch of targets for it now. I mean, just here on our basic X-Men, there's 12, and on our leadership X-Men, we have another 8, and I think we have at least one more still to be revealed in the Magneto pack. So you could run an X-Force hero, and now you can play this and just all X-Men allies. Again, you can't run X-Force allies because Children of Atom is not changing the makeup of your deck. It's only changing the allies and characters who are in play. But your hero can now play To Me My X-Men. You can play something like a Professor X off of it or put into play, and he'll bounce back to your hand on the next turn. So just something to keep in mind. There might be like what's the term I'm looking for when you get like enough of something to make it worthwhile. I don't know, let me know in the comments, but maybe it's just not as good as like the Cyclops version, who can take it from all different aspects, but something to consider. These other 2 cards in Aggression and Justice, they're okay. I mean, I really think Team Strike is the more playable than Mutant Peacekeepers, just because you always have a use for excess damage, where excess thwart you don't really. But you can exhaust X-Force allies towards this now. So if your identity has X-Men trait or the X-Force trait, thanks to Children of the Atom, exhaust your hero and any number of X-Men allies, deal X damage among enemies in play, where X is the total attack of the characters you exhausted this way. So something like X-23. X-23 is boosting her attack very high. She could exhaust herself and some high attack ally. If we look through our stack, I don't think there are too many that fit the bill, but she does get access to Wolverine. That could be a really fun, like a little fun thematic team up. She exhausts for 5, Wolverine exhausts for 3. Unfortunately, she doesn't give piercing to it like Wolverine Hero does, and she can't ignore guard or play it with solid like Shadowcat does. Yeah, not too much on the X-Force side of things. Anything in basic that we might want to use with Team Strike? Let's just take a quick look here. Anything that goes to 4 attack, not really. Yeah, I mean, Gambit could get to 4 attack if he gets a quadruple boost, which is pretty rare. That's something to consider with Team Strike. Anything in the X-Force stack. Maybe like a Deathlock with an attack training or something. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think you could run this with like X-23. It's probably the best base for a deck like that. She readies herself, so even if you get exhausted in the villain phase, there is a way to still play this. Yeah, something to consider. Low cost curve. She likes low cost curve. Okay, Mutant Peacekeepers, exhaust your hero, any number of X-Men allies, remove X threat from among schemes in play, where X is the total thwart of those characters. Well, now you get access to some big thwarting X-Force allies that you didn't have before, like Pete Wisdom. You know, Pete Wisdom here is 3 thwart. You can now exhaust him to mutant peacekeepers thanks to Children of the Atom. I don't think there's too many other. Yeah, there's really isn't much else that you would want to do this with. But yeah, something like Psylocke for 3, Pete Wisdom for 3, and now you're removing 6 from among schemes in play. Now, this is completely outclassed by gunboat diplomacy nowadays, but it's an option. Mutant Protector is probably the weakest of these cards. It has to be an actual X-Men ally in your hand, so no cheating in X-Force allies with this effect, but you can now play this as an X-Force hero. Now, there aren't too many X-Force heroes that are really going to want to mess around with this, so I don't think there's a huge use for it right now. The only deck I've really liked it in is Magik Protection anyways. Okay, looking up here to these other team-ups, we got Combined Forces. Exhaust an X-Force and X-Men character, defeat a non-elite minion. This is just not a very strong effect to begin with. I don't think we really need to talk about it. Serve and Protect. Exhaust an X-Force and X-Men character. So now it can be 2 X-Force characters, because one might have, you know, they both have the X-Men trait with Children of Atom, or it could be 2 X-Men characters. Because again, they might have they're going to have the X-Force trait from Children of Atom. Prevent threat and give each of those characters a tough status card. So I don't know if there's too many reasons to like be running this with 2 X-Force characters. Yeah, not really. But it is nice to give Warpath another tough. And if you're running Utopia with a bunch of X-Men allies, then the fact that this exhausts your hero or exhausts an ally isn't really that much of a hindrance anymore, because now you can just play your cheap little 2-cost X-Men ally and ready with Utopia, whereas previously, if you were running like X-23 or Deadpool Serve and Protect, and you had to exhaust your hero, well, there's no way for you to ready. I guess X-23 has readies, but it's much more of a cost than it was before you had access to Utopia. I do know that TJJJ is working on an excellent deck that utilizes this card, so I don't want to spoil it here, but look out for that on the Marvel CDB at some point. I'm really excited for it. Okay, Mutant Mayhem. I mean, we can go. I have a whole list of Mutant Mayhem-able allies, but essentially, there aren't that many like X-Force targets that are really that good with it. You got like Sunspot really is the main one, and even then, the reduced cost is not good for Mutant Mayhem. So there isn't a lot in terms of X-Force. Like previously, we had Hope Summers and Marrow are the best ones, but because now you can do this with 2 X-Men allies, thanks to Children of the Atom, you can just bounce 2 X-Men allies, replay 2 X-Men allies, and there are a lot of X-Men allies with either play from hand or enters play effects that are really strong. You can just run Mutant Mayhem and some X-Men allies, and like that's a pretty strong core. You've got Beak, Forge as enters play, Triage as enters play, Gambit as enters play, Professor X as enters play, Shadowcat is play from hand. Let's see. On the leadership side of things, Cyclops enters play, M enters play, Phoenix enters play, Pixie play from hand, Mirage enters play, Beast enters play. So you can get something where you just have like Beast and Beak, or M and Cyclops, and you just like have 2 really strong allies you're replaying a lot. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff here. I think this is one that might be really good with like a non-X-Men or X-Force hero as well, because you can play Children of the Atom, and you can play a lot of the best allies outside of trade as well. Something like you know, like we talked about, Beast and Professor X, and then, you know, Star-Lord discounts Mutant Mayhem to 0 cost with his hero ability. Stuff like that. There's all sorts of like wild things you can get into with this. And yeah, so that's just a quick overview here. Let's see, we can look through our specific ally stacks. See, if we look through the X-Force stacks, let's look through the X-Men stacks, see who is gaining and who is losing here. Armor. She is previously locked to the X-Men trait. Now any X-Force hero gets access to a 2-cost tough ally. And again, you have access to Utopia now. 2-cost allies, easy to trigger Utopia. Bada bing, bada boom. We like this if we're X-Force. Iceman, not a very good ally. We can skip him. Nightcrawler, he could already trigger his ability for himself, so it doesn't really widen it too much more, but there is a niche case where, like, they might be worthwhile in Deadpool or something. Maybe Deadpool took an extra attack, or he was exhausted or something. Nightcrawler got exhausted by a boost effect. Deadpool is taking damage from an attack undefended. It might kill him, and you pop Nightcrawler to hand. Now, this is this is like such a wild out there case. You probably need like an honorary on Deadpool in the first place to make an attack and alter ego triggerable from, given he doesn't have the X-Men trait unless he also has the X-Force trait and alter ego from something like X-Force Recruit. So I don't even know if this is like a super realistic scenario, but Nightcrawler is not gaining a whole ton from this change. Polaris, she can now give Tufts to X-Force heroes. This is huge. A lot of X-Force heroes love Tufts. Yeah, Rogue, she could already mess around with traits. So I think the main thing here is just being able to have Utopia access. Okay, and the Justice characters. Oh, you know what we didn't talk about? We didn't talk about gunboat diplomacy. So yeah, previously you had to exhaust both an X-Force and an X-Men character. Now you can just exhaust 2 X-Men characters, right? A lot of your X-Force characters you didn't want to exhaust anyways. Wolfsbane, you don't want to exhaust for it because you want to use her ability. There weren't a lot of great targets for basic. You had like Pete Wisdom was probably your best basic target for gunboat diplomacy. But now you can trigger it with 2 X-Men allies. So someone like Bishop, who doesn't really care about being ready or not, because you're still getting attacked either way, you can just exhaust him to gunboat diplomacy and a second X-Men ally. Let's see here. Are the X-Force heroes gaining access to anything? Yeah, not really. You just get better gunboat targets, because now you can just run all X-Men allies. You don't have to run the expensive X-Force allies that you don't really want to be exhausting to gunboat anyways. In terms of aggression, Magik is a very interesting one. After you play Magik from your hand, spend a mental resource, choose a non-elite minion engaged with an X-Men hero, shuffle that minion into the encounter deck. So now all your X-Force heroes are also X-Men heroes, so you can target stuff with Magik. And like one of the neat things is, I don't want to say off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure none of the X-Force heroes' nemesis are elite. So if you're, again, a Cable player and you're really scared of Strife coming out, you can play Magik and just pop Strife right back into the deck. Doesn't matter that he's canceling your psionic events or that other players can't attack him and yada yada yada, or that you can't attack other stuff. You just play Magik, shuffle him right back in, relatively clear board state. I think the only issue for someone like Cable is just making sure you have a mental in hand or available to spend. Could be a reason to run X-Jet or something like that. But that's a cool little trait lock that you get access to. I mean, Sunfire with Utopia, he's much better with Cable because of the Gray Malkin. And now if you get Utopia access, Sunfire is a nice little engine. I mean, Aggression has the most 2-cost X-Men allies, so this really like makes that Utopia and all 2-cost allies deck that any X-Force hero can now run very strong. I think, if I can go on a soapbox for a second, I think it almost homogenizes the deck building. Like if you look at a lot of these allies that are X-Force, a lot of them are like weaker than current options in the game, or just have no synergy with their own traits or with other heroes in the game, and end up being like so weak that you don't want to run them. There's no reason to run X-Force allies over other allies currently, and I think Children of the Atom has removed the last reason to run X-Force allies, which was, you get access to these fairly strong team-up cards. Now that you don't have to run X-Force allies, I think a lot of heroes, their best deck just becomes 2-cost X-Men plus Utopia and Children of the Atom. So I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing for the game, but I do think it kind of, as wide as this card is expanding the deck building, I think it's also shrinking it at the same time, which is unfortunate. Tempest is a cool one that X-Force heroes get access to now. Play only if it has the X-Men trait, well with Children of the Atom they do, and you can cancel a scheme, deal yourself a face down and counter card instead. So that lets you flip even if you don't have to confuse, even if you don't have another way to flip. lets you stay down an alter ego if you wanted to for another turn and just cancel a scheme outright, or just see maybe if they pull advance, we'll wait for advance, cancel advance instead, that kind of thing. So Tempest, kind of cool. Glob, X-Men locked that X-Force now has access to. There isn't a lot of synergy with the X-Force heroes, though. I think X-23 has an attachment that goes on an enemy, but almost always it's going to go on the villain because of the minus attack. So yeah, not a ton of synergy there. That's brand new. So there's our X-Men. Aggression allies. All right. Let's see, Cyclops is already good, not trait locked. M, already good, not trait locked. Phoenix, well now she can ready any X-Force ally as well. So if there is a, let's see, X-23 is now an X-Men ally, you play Phoenix, that readies X-23. Or Cable, now an X-Men ally, you play Phoenix, that readies Cable. Or something like Domino, this kind of thing. So Phoenix, she's pretty interesting. I understand why. She's another Psionic character, turns on Cerebro, that kind of thing. Let's see, Pixie, she can't grab X-Force allies out of the discard because I don't have the X-Men trait at that point in time. Another 2-cost ally for Utopia. Okay. Let's go up and look at the basic allies. I think are the last ones we really need to take a peek at before we dive deeper into some stuff. So there are some discounted allies. Yep, these 3 are our discounts that are now discounted in hero form. If you're an X-Force hero that's playing Children of the Atom, not super big use case. We will come back to Colossus later because I think there is something cool that you can do with him. Let's look at some locked allies. So if we're looking at the allies that are locked to X-Men only, that would be these 3. Longshot isn't doing too much. After he attacks a non-elite minion, discard the top card of the encounter deck. If that card is a boost icon, defeat the attacked minion. So I think, again, the main use case here is Nemesis sets of X-Force heroes, and in particular, Cable has that card Precognition that can set the top card of the encounter deck. So if you get into a situation where you're playing Cable, and Strife is in play, and you have Longshot and Children of the Atom in play, then you can go ahead and use Precognition that's in your hand and get rid of Strife. So that's a neat little thing. But other than that, very narrow use case, I don't think there is too much benefit of adding Longshot to the X-Force heroes. Shadowcat. She has a pretty cool use case with Cable Hero in particular, which we can come back to in a little bit. But I don't think she's strong enough really to warrant running Children of the Atom in an X-Force hero. Sync. I don't think this ally is that good. It's a very expensive, version of combat training, symbiote suit, armored vest, that kind of thing, except you only get it once per turn. If you play Heroic Intuition on yourself and you're readying a bunch, you're getting multiple uses of that stat. And Sync is costing more than a lot of those cards. Now, the thing is, you do get the flexibility of what stat you can use it on, and it does boost recovery as well. But I'm not sure if this is really worth running Children of the Atom just to get into your X-Force hero. Maybe you're X-23 and you like to boost your attack one more time, or something like that, but there's so many other ways to boost stats. Even Adrenaline Rush, I think, is better than Sync, really. Because again, you can store it for when you need it and use it multiple times in the same round. Being able to only use the stat boost once kind of kills the cost of the card for me. So these 3 I don't think are super standouts from Children of the Atom, but the rest of the allies are all super good. These are some of the best allies in the game right here. And Professor X is king. Gambit is so useful in so many different ways. I mean, he's an enters play effect that lets you scry the villain deck, so maybe you get a free flip down, maybe you set up a nice boost for yourself or a nice encounter card if the villain is status, that kind of thing. But also can just maybe get big stats too. And big stats is good for gunboat diplomacy, Uncanny X-Force, all sorts of stuff that you can do. Triage can now heal any X-Force ally or any X-Force hero. So this is very interesting. Triage can now heal Deadpool. Triage can now heal your Wolfsbane. this kind of thing. So neat use case there. I think Forge is going to be even more ubiquitous now because you are giving Utopia access to 6 other heroes that all love Utopia, and now here's a card that searches out Utopia, and yeah. So end of story. Don't need to talk about Forge too much. And then Beak. If all of your X-Force allies are now also X-Men allies, Beak is just, his ceiling is increasing all the time. In terms of who else to add to this lineup, we got Marrow. Marrow is another great 2-cost ally, triggers Utopia now, and completes the trilogy here of Beak and Triage and Marrow, all hitting different parts of the triangle, some damage, some thwart, some healing. So nice little thing from Marrow. And then Legion. Now, I think there isn't too much synergy here with X-Force heroes, but he does get a nice bump from Uncanny X-Force. Alright, so this was our quick little overview. I want to do a section. I know we haven't talked about these 2 cards yet, and these are the 2 that are probably up there with Utopia as mattering the most with Children of the Atom. So these are going to get their own section, and then we're going to go through some heroes, maybe one by one, and look at some decks. All right? Okay. I will be right back. I don't want to devote too much time to Uncanny X-Men because it is just one of the strongest cards in the game. The strongest team card, hands down. Now, if you are putting a lot of X-Force allies, it is just a more expensive team training because they don't get the X-Men ally, they don't get the X-Men trait in your hands. They don't get the discount. But what this does is basically gives all 6 X-Force heroes access to the same exact Uncanny X-Men deck that every X-Men hero can run very, very well. So I just wanted to point that out there, that you can run a very strong deck with a lot of the X-Men allies and X-Force hero, and throw Uncanny in with Children of the Atom. Don't need to devote that much time to it, but I do want to ask you guys, do you think that this is too homogenous? Are you tired of Uncanny X-Men? Do you wish that there was more of a reason to run X-Force allies instead of X-Men allies? Or do you like that X-Force now has access to this? Let me know. I'm very curious what your thoughts are. Alright, let's look really quick at maybe one of the stronger interactions that Children of the Atom is bringing to the game, which is that X-Men allies can now be boosted by Uncanny X-Force. So anyone can play this team card. You don't have to have the X-Force trait, but if each of your characters has the X-Force trait, each ally you control gets +1 thwart and takes -1 consequential damage after thwarting a side scheme. So if you're running an X-Force hero, or if you're running an X-Men hero with Children of the Atom, you now gain the X-Force trait, which now satisfies the quota for Uncanny X-Force. You can run some strong allies that maybe you don't like to take consequential damage. Storm has a very strong thwarting ability where you can move threat before you thwart, and Uncanny X-Force now has her move 2 and then thwart for 3, and that's 5 threat. You have Legion over here, who is now just activating for maybe 3, or maybe 4, 2 from his basic thwart thanks to Uncanny, and then either 2 damage or 2 thwart if you get lucky from his ability, and he's not taking consequential for it. So, but here we have a lot of allies who necessarily don't want to take consequential. Banshee, he can stay out all game, not taking consequential, thwarting for 3, confusing minions, turning on your float like a butterfly engine if someone plays an Uncanny X-Force onto you and you have a Children of the Atom in play. Bishop, he doesn't want to waste his health thwarting. He wants to do the thwarting, but then save his health for when he can use all of his counters. Husk, I mean, this is really silly. You put her in a Cyclops deck. Oh, I did lie. Sorry, in my notes here. Cyclops can run Uncanny X-Force and X-Men heroes. So you put Husk into a Cyclops deck with Uncanny X-Force. She's thwarting for 3. She's not taking consequential when she's thwarting side schemes. And you can just pitch your entire hand to keep readying her and buffing her stats. You never have to worry about healing her. Rogue, if you're thwarting with her and you're thwarting a side scheme, this keeps her healthy, keeps her around all game, and boosts her base thwart to 3. So that's really strong. So these are kind of like Cyclops only allies, or multiplayer only at the moment. And then if we go to this bottom row here, these are some tough allies that if you have tough and you're thwarting a side scheme with Uncanny X-Force, you're not taking consequential, so you're not going to lose your tough. So that's a pretty interesting interaction there. You have Uncanny X-Force down, you're playing this Colossus ally, you play him, you usually don't want to activate with him because you want to save his tough to defend in the villain phase, but now you can actually activate, take 2 off of a side scheme, and he's still going to have his tough. So that's really neat with Uncanny X-Force. I think the other neat interaction is actually gunboat diplomacy, and again, this is going to be a multiplayer thing, but you're playing your justice deck, your gunboat diplomacy, and maybe someone plays an Uncanny X-Force onto you, and now each of your gunboat targets are +1 thwart. So if you have something like a Knoll, who we saw from the new recruit side scheme, he's got 3 thwart. Now he's got 4 from Uncanny X-Force. You can get up to 5 with a Danger Room training on him, or you go Professor X with Uncanny X-Force Danger Room training, or Pete Wisdom, Uncanny X-Force Danger Room training. You get 2 5-thwart allies relatively easily to exhaust for gunboat diplomacy, and now you're spreading 10 thwart and you're spreading 10 damage however you want. So this is pretty cool, a little multiplayer combo if someone can give that to you. One cool thing that is definitely going to be underexplored in this video, so there's a lot of space here to explore and try to find some stuff, is that Children of the Atom can allow you, once you place an honorary onto a non-X-Men or non-X-Force ally, give that ally both of the traits. So you play an honorary X-Men onto, say, Daredevil. Now he's both an X-Men and an X-Force. You put an X-Force recruit onto Jack Flag, he's now an X-Force and an X-Men, thanks to Children of the Atom. Now, why would you do this? You have to be, for one, you have to be either an X-Men or X-Force hero to even do this in the first place, unless you're playing multiplayer. But why would you want to do this? Well, now that ally gets access to the training upgrades, which are some of the strongest ally Voltron tools in the game. They get access to recurring healing through X-Mansion, so if you have strong activation-based effects, and they get access to, if you're running Uncanny X-Force, they get access to minus consequential when they thwart on side schemes. So if you're running multiplayer and justice based, you can get Uncanny X-Force from a teammate, but you can also just do X-Mansion and Daredevil with a mission training. Every time he's thwarting for 3 and he's dealing a damage. You just heal him for Mansion turn after turn. Similar story for Jessica Jones, Jack Flag, Wiccan, this kind of thing. You can put a protective training on Martyr, or just keep her healthy with X-Mansion over and over again. These are some examples. I pulled up some very quick examples. There's dozens more that you can find for yourself. Giant Man. Extra hit points from Danger Room training, extra heal from X-Mansion helps keep him in that +2 attack zone. Now, unfortunately, like Uncanny X-Force can also help him keep in that zone, but doesn't really do anything for his extra attack, but does give him some extra thwarting. Adam Warlock, keep him out all game with X-Mansion or Uncanny X-Force, and put a training on him. He does a lot of work. A lot of these X-Men X-Force heroes, they have stuff that you want to discard to. You can put, my Domino deck was all about Adam Warlock and discarding Jackpot to him. Now all of a sudden you put a Danger Room training on him thanks to Children of the Atom plus X-Force recruit, and he's a 2/2 and doing another 3/3/3. That kind of thing. Cloud9 I put in here just to try to find something for Angel with this, but because Cannonball can now have a training on him, or Psylocke can have a training on her, this kind of thing, you can actually just exhaust her, and now you have extra readies thanks to Utopia and Psylocke and your wings, that now you're getting extra thwart for your hero. You're getting your basic +1 ready from Psylocke, +1 ready from Utopia, potentially +1 ready from wings. That's 4 basic powers. So that's a lot of thwarting potentially from Cloud9 here. She boosts Cannonball's thwart, and you can always flying formation or something crazy like that. But just something to pick out for Angel, perhaps. Although she doesn't benefit too much from Children of the Atom, she can get an honorary and be healed with X-Mansion and Danger Room Training, this kind of thing. However you want to do it, just in case you need to activate it with her instead of use her ability. And then two of the strongest allies in the game, we have Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and Gamora. Now Gamora, you're going to have to cheat in with Call for Backup or make the call, but once she's there, you can just heal her every single round with X-Mansion. As long as you're thwarting side schemes, Uncanny X-Force will prevent her from taking damage. You can put a Danger Room Training on her once you get an Honorary and Children of the X-Men. So yeah, very strong here. A lot of heroes love running the Web Warrior package, even if they're not Web Warriors. So if you look back, I've got a Reddit post from like 2 or 3 years ago that's all about using Web Warriors in non-Web Warrior heroes. Usually because of Ghost Spider and Otto, because those are two of the stronger allies. Tutoring strong things or readying strong things are both good and universally loved by just about every single hero. But Spider-Man can actually now stay in play forever, thanks to X-Mansion and Uncanny X-Force. Is it better to just run first aids? I don't know, maybe. But you can at least put a Danger Room Training on him, and now he's a 3/3. That's never dying. So here's just some like neat things. There's so much more to explore in this space. I just wanted to spend a short time part of this video on this. One other card that's getting a pretty big buff from Children of the Atom is this card, Mutant Mayhem. Choose an X-Force ally and an X-Men ally and return them to their owner's hands. Those players play those allies, ignoring their resource costs. Now, we're going to focus on allies with Enter's Play and Play from Hand effects to get the most bang for our buck from this, but you can always just use this as like a full heal on an ally or like a get ready, because you can activate an ally, bounce them to hand, replay them, now they're at full health, and you can activate them again. That's always on the table, and there's a lot of good allies for that. But in terms of allies that have strong Enter's Play effects that happen as they come in, there were not a lot on the X-Force side. So if we focus here on this side of the screen, there is really only a few. Deathlock, you don't really want to replay if he already has an attachment on him. And Caliban, you replay him and he's just milling your deck and maybe getting an ally. So you kind of refund part of the cost of Mutant Mayhem. Are you actually going to be able to play that ally? Who's to say? So that left Hope Summers, who, again, a lot of the times she's getting you a card. Are you going to have the resources to play that card after playing a 3-cost event? Who's to say? You typically want to play her with like a hero that has a lot of 0-cost superpowers, that kind of thing. So she can be good. You do have to get her into play somehow beforehand. But I think once we get to the X-Men trait, we're going to see there's so many stronger options nowadays. And that left Marrow, who is a relatively low impact, but it's still a very good effect to replay for free. 2 damage. Then he swings for 2. That takes out most minions. Or sorry, she swings for 2. So that's just there weren't a lot of great X-Force targets to make this work, and one of them had to be an X-Force. Now with Children of the Atom, you can just run 2 X-Men allies. So again, we kind of see how like the X-Force trait is a little bit diminished by this card, because there aren't a lot of good options in the first place. That's kind of what kept these cards in check. But now we can run any 2 of these options here. So we've got our Beacon Triage that we saw before. We've got our Professor X, get that Confuse. Although I think it's pretty hard to actually Mutant Mayhem with Professor X, because you likely played him that turn, or you had to have played him that turn, and then you Mutant Mayhem and you get him back. You can't get another Confuse unless you're playing against a steady enemy, of course. But now that your X-Force hero has access to Utopia, it's always ready, or now that your X-Force hero, even if they don't have Utopia out, now that they just have the X-Men trait, Professor X can ready your hero now. Ready your Psylocke hero. Super strong, even without Utopia. Gambit, always good. We talked a little bit about him earlier. Injustice over here for our Cyclops mains. We got Dazzler, another Confused Blindfold, lets you scry the top of the encounter deck. Polaris, you got a Tough somewhere. Karma, she takes control of a minion for you. Now if you bounce her to hand, you probably already want to have used up the minion she currently has before you bounce her and replay her, but just another thing to be aware of. Glob, again, specifically for Cyclops, just because he can play him out of aspect and also has attachments. Sunfire, nice to get rid of stuff. Magik, nice to bounce stuff back into the deck. And then down here we have our actual leadership options for those who can't cheat out of aspect cards. Wow. Why was that such a tongue twister? Cyclops ally is always nice to have a good finishing blow. It represents a lot of damage here. Mirage can be a stun. Now you have access to Uncanny X-Force with Mirage. She's coming into play with 3 thwart a lot of the times. That's going to stun most 2 scheme and below villains. There aren't so many villains with 3 scheme without an attachment, so she is going to do some work when she gets to 3. Let's see, Pixie, nice to get an ally from your hand, but like we saw earlier, doesn't always make it playable. Usually just a resource. Phoenix can ready a different ally that you aren't bouncing back to hand with Mutant Mayhem. Get a free activation out of it. Do something like X-23 Mutant Mayhem, full heal on Honey Badger, or bounce Phoenix and get another ready out of Honey Badger, which gets another ready out of your hero. Maybe gets you another ready from Utopia at the same time. M, just such a cool card. Defeating another minion out of nowhere. Just boom, defeat a minion, Mutant Mayhem. And then Beast. I think Beast is one of the key Mutant Mayhem targets, even pre-Children of the Atom, just because he gets you a resource that helps you play the last card in your hand after you play your 3-cost card, that kind of thing. So Beast, really good, and I think a lot of these X-Men and X-Force heroes that have signature resource cards. We just saw Magneto has a signature resource card. Deadpool has a quadruple resource card. Jubilee has a bunch of these, this kind of thing, Gambit, etc. Beast is a really nice for Mutant Mayhem in a lot of these heroes. And then we have some signature options up here. Cyclops, of course, as Phoenix, who can then tutor his discard for any Cyclops card. Wolverine can Mutant Mayhem Jubilee, and that plus attack is going to stack onto Wolverine himself. And then Lockheed. Deal 2 damage to an enemy if you're solid, remove 2 threat if you're phased, so it's kind of like you get a mini Beak or a Marrow, and 2 costs, so more Utopia. And then over here on the X-Force side, an actual X-Force ally that's good with Mutant Mayhem is Angel. You get to ready Psylocke for that nice big 3 stat line. So Mutant Mayhem has some nice signature options as well, but I think it's just benefited so much by having a broader spectrum of strong allies to choose from instead of needing to shoehorn in some X-Force allies. Mutant Mayhem and Gunboat Diplomacy have benefited a ton from Children of the Atom in my analysis, I believe. Okay, let's move on to some hero specifics. I'm going to try to trend away from just talking about Gunboat and Mutant Mayhem in every single hero, because I do think those two alliance cards can be played in just about pretty much any X-Men and X-Force hero, and then some with Children of the Atom. But I do want to give some special mention to Cyclops here. Exploit Weakness is going to increase the damage that Gunboat does, and Priority Target, if Gunboat defeats something, you're getting to draw 2. So some ways that Children of the Atom can help both Mutant Mayhem and Gunboat Diplomacy are he gets Uncanny X-Force, which can boost the thwart of certain allies. Now this doesn't help necessarily with Gunboat, because you can't have both Uncanny X-Force and Gunboat in the same deck, but this can help him run his own son, Cable. And it does help him with Mirage, who he can tutor quite easily, turns on Cerebro for him. Now he always has M to help hit priority target, and X-23 to help hit priority target, or X-23 gets boosted by Exploit Weakness, this kind of thing. Now Husk is another one that is really benefiting from Uncanny X-Force, Glob as well, especially with the minus consequential for him. And yeah, this is just a neat little stuff here. Mutant Mayhem is going to be excellent with Cyclops just because he can run 20 allies, and it's going to be all the best allies because they're going to be all natural X-Men. But Cyclops, he's got infinite Husk thanks to Uncanny X-Men, Uncanny X-Force and Husk. He runs gunboats really, really well, and all those allies that have activation effects based on when they thwart, even out of color. He can take because of his Uncanny X-Force and can run non-leadership, non-basic X-Men allies with it. So Cyclops is an interesting base for Uncanny X-Force. I don't think it really edges out his Uncanny X-Men deck all too much, but it is neat for something like Husk, something like Cable, something like Mirage. I think these three are all super interesting with Uncanny X-Force. Didn't want to talk too much more about some of the other early X-Men heroes. I mean, Colossus, I don't think gets helped by Children of the Atom too much. We did see that his signature Shadowcat ally does get boosted a little bit by Uncanny X-Force, but I don't think it's something Colossus really wants to spend a ton of time on. He does do well with Gunboat because he can defend pretty well for his allies, but he also does like his allies to defend for him to save his toughs, so I'm not sure how much of a... I don't think he synergizes too much with that, but that is an availability now that he can run all the best X-Men allies, or even run, Pete Wisdom or something like that. If he gets loses a bunch of toughs, draws a bunch of cards, that kind of thing, and you can afford some of those more expensive allies. But I don't want to spend too much time on him. I don't want to spend too much time on Shadowcat, who I don't think gets a ton from Children of the Atom. She doesn't really need a lot of the X-Force cards, and then there aren't a lot of X-Force allies that super synergize with her. You could do like Warpath, Children of the Atom, with like a protective training, and then play an attack event in the villain phase, but she can also just run Powerful Punch if she wants to flip a lot. So a lot of hoops to jump through for those two. Talking about Phoenix, I think Phoenix just lets her run a deck that Psylocke already runs really well, which is that Uncanny X-Force deck with Cable and X-23 and Psychic Kicker. So there isn't too much to talk about with Phoenix. Maybe there's some kind of like similar to my Psylocke protection deck, some kind of change of fortune thing with her, but I'm not sure that Children of the Atom is playing too much into that really. It does give her better access to Warpath, though he triggers Utopia once and that's it. So yeah, out of the first 4 released X-Men, I don't think Children of the Atom is doing too much except for maybe in Psylocke. And so we'll just move on from there. Alright, moving on to some of the later Wave 6 X-Men. Skipping past Wolverine, he can run Gunboat because he can play it with his claws, but he can run X-23 just for theme purposes. But I think he mostly likes to deal damage through attack events. Getting access to Marrow is kind of nice for him, just as another cheap Utopia trigger. But I don't think there is anything that's changing Wolverine a ton with Children of the Atom. Again, you get Mutant Mayhem with his Jubilee ally and another X-Men ally instead of having to run an X-Force ally. But not a ton, I think, for Wolverine. But I think Storm has some interesting interactions here. So primarily Thunderstorm, giving each character +1 attack. Now she's got X-23. Now, she could already do this. X-23 is not trait locked. You can always put an honorary on her, that type of thing. But getting like Danger Room training onto X-23 is really nice when you have a Thunderstorm in play. Getting access to Uncanny X-Force is really nice because now you have your allies almost always have +1 thwart or +1 attack or both. So you have an ally like Cable who's a 3 thwart 4 attack. X-23, 2 thwart 4 attack. You get Danger Room training on these guys. Now it's 4/5, now it's 3/5, this kind of thing. Marrow, really nice ally just to trigger Utopia. Again, was not Storm. It wasn't like she couldn't run this before, but with Children of the Atom gives her Uncanny X-Force value. And these allies are also really nice to set up the new M ally. Now Marrow comes in, lowers a minion by 2 health, and then you play M, and M just defeats the minion right away with the enters play, this kind of thing. So I think Thunderstorm boosting X-23 with Uncanny X-Force or Cable with Uncanny X-Force, there's some interesting play here. Nothing super complicated. Again, I don't think Children of the Atom is changing the X-Men heroes all that much, but just a little interesting thing that I wanted to point out. Alright, moving on to Gambit. He's one who can, boost Gunboat with his counters. He can run Uncanny X-Force and have his signature rogue ally keep her tough status card using that. But I think like the neatest interaction I noticed with Children of Adam is getting access to Pete Wisdom. And he is able, Remy can set up your treachery card or your encounter card. If the villain is statused, you set the top card to a treachery. Now you're guaranteed to heal Pete Wisdom. Is that super strong? Not too much, but it is a neat little interaction there that Children of the Atom allows, and that Remy previously didn't have access to without some kind of like trait cheating, like make the call or call for backup. So with Children of the Atom really doing that much, again, not too much for an X-Men hero, but just something worth noting. Let's see, we're not going to put Rogue's cards out here, but she's another one who can run like Mutant Mayhem, Gunboat Diplomacy, just because she can cycle those cards, and now she doesn't have to run a lot of X-Force allies if she doesn't want to. She can also do like the whole X-Force thing with the Uncanny X-Force and Psychic Kicker with the psionic allies, because there's so many psionic allies now, but it's kind of just a worse version of what Phoenix and Psylocke are capable of. So again, it's the first wave of the X-Men. Children of the Atom is not doing too much except for Psylocke in the wave. I don't think in practical terms it's changing a lot for these heroes, but just some neat little interactions here that makes it slightly easier without needing to put into play certain allies or do any kind of like trait cheating in multiplayer, that kind of thing. Alright, Bishop is one who I don't think Children of the Atom again affects too much beyond stuff that like everybody can run. Gunboat Diplomacy plus training cards, Mutant Mayhem, that kind of thing. But Magik here, she already likes these two allies a whole lot. She likes Wolfsbane a ton, she likes Domino a ton. It's another use of Limbo essentially, but player phase only. And she gets access to Uncanny X-Force, which can keep Domino and keep Legion around for much longer, giving her much more control over the top card of her deck, helping her gain more value. She can put a Danger Room training onto Domino much easier. She can put a Mission training onto Wolfsbane much easier. I had been running a deck that was using Honorary X-Men and Mission training on Wolfsbane with Magik, and I ended up cutting those cards just to put in First Aid instead. But Children of the Atom kind of makes it viable again, because you can always play it down before you get Wolfsbane out. And it's a one-coster off the top of her deck. She likes one-cost cards that she can easily play off the top in the player phase, or swap into her hand for very cheap. And it's an energy if it gets hit by Legion, and she likes energy because I think it's her defense events, Magic Barrier or something like that, is probably the card of hers that she has the most difficulty setting up the kicker for, because if you play it off the top of your deck, you have no idea what's underneath it, and it really wants either an energy or a wild, so I do like having energy in Magik's deck in abundance. Now with Uncanny X-Force, she can also save the tough from her signature Colossus ally as well. There's some neat little things here, nothing game-breaking. We're going through all the X-Men heroes first. None of them have huge shifts, but we will get onto the X-Force heroes, and I think those are a little bit more exciting to deck build for. Alright, Iceman, he's another one who I think can make good use of Children of the Atom. And here's like just another thing that was already possible, which was, if you saw my How to Play Iceman video, the leadership deck focused a lot on using Domino to set up Cryokinetic Perception. You put an ice card on the top of your deck with her ability, and then you make a basic activation, basic attack, or basic defense with Iceman, trigger Cryokinetic Perception to draw that ice card, just so it doesn't whiff. And it guarantees you the ready as well. Guarantees you the ready if it's ice. So this was something that's already possible. You could always put Honorary X-Men and a Danger Room training on her, which I think I was doing in that video. But something that he now gets access to, which he doesn't even need to honorary her anymore, is just Uncanny X-Force, and keep her around all game. Now you don't need the extra health. It does help solve some of his thwarting issue, because now she is 2 thwart for any side scheme. You can put a Danger Room training on her. Now she's 3 thwart, so she's blanking most solo side schemes. And of course, Utopia is Iceman's best friend, and he gets some extra 2-cost allies that can trigger it, like Marrow. Marrow is just another really good ally. Now, he does have to give up Uncanny X-Men for this, but I think Domino guaranteeing the ready from cryokinetic perception is a little bit more worth it than Uncanny X-Men, just a little bit. But you can always, if you don't want to keep Domino around all game using Uncanny X-Force, you can swap it out for Uncanny X-Men, tuned to your taste, or seasoned to your taste. What do they say when they're cooking, But this was just a really cool thing. Let's see, Nightcrawler I don't think is one that is too changed. His signature ally is neither X-Men or X-Force traded. He doesn't have the economy to play a ton of allies in the first place, even though he really likes to, just for the stabilization. But I think he's also one who he has enough situational cards. You don't want to be running a card you have to see at a specific time, like Children of the Atom, to make work. So Nightcrawler is one I'm not too sure on, so I'm just kind of skipping over him for now, and we'll move on to the next one. Alright, Jubilee is one who I don't think, again, stands out too much as wanting Children of the Atom. She can always include like Deadpool and Domino in her decks. They both have wild icons. She likes wild icons to hit her, like spend different resource types kickers. But I thought she was a good place to showcase like a neat little interaction here, which is that Warpath, who, he has tough. You can play a hero action in the villain phase after you defend with him. When he becomes an X-Men through Children of the Atom, can now gain a tough back from Polaris. That's super cool. He can be healed by Triage. Super cool. And Nightcrawler can actually cancel the damage for Warpath now, which is interesting. I mean, is this super strong to be spending your entire hand in the villain phase like that? Not usually, but it is an option. So these three allies can now support Warpath pretty well. You can run like a Servant Protect deck, or, most notably you can run a Change of Fortune deck because her sunglasses. If you saw my Psylocke Protection Change of Fortune using Scimitar in the, or Scimitar in the villain phase to trigger Change of Fortune, her sunglasses is also a response that you can trigger in the villain phase. So you can use Warpath to play like Grand Finale or Firecracker or Hard Knocks, or just run some powerful punches alongside this and take out some minions. So Warpath defending a minion, gets his tough back from Polaris, or just gets the health back from Triage, because minions are usually hitting for less than 2 anyways. So yeah, just use Warpath to either defend the villain and then play hero action, kill the minion before it activates, or defend a minion and then kill it and trigger Change of Fortune. So Jubilee does like card draw because she is a pretty resource heavy hero, and getting some extra use out of sunglasses in the villain phase is a neat little trick, I think. So Polaris giving Warpath tough, Triage healing Warpath, Nightcrawler blocking all damage for either Warpath or Jubilee kind of solves a lot of her health issues. Neat little thing that Children of the Atom enables in particular. Now, you could do this much easier just by playing Honorary X-Men on Warpath, but what's the fun of that? Alright, moving on to the X-Force heroes, who I think gain so much more from Children of the Atom than the X-Men heroes. So here we're going to get into, I think, the more interesting ideas of this video. So if you gave up before you got to this point in the video, shame on you, because I think these are some of the more interesting ideas here. So first off, we have Cable, and if you saw my Cable deck on the Marvel CDB, it was all around using Uncanny X-Force to boost the thwart of allies that he could then steal with teamwork, so he gets his ready much easier before he gets his TVP cleared and things like that. You can still run this deck, and now you have many more strong allies to add into it. You can actually probably just take out all of those X-Force allies that were in that deck and just replace them entirely with X-Men allies, Children of the Atom, and Uncanny X-Force, and it'll go very well. There's a lot of high thwart X-Men, especially if you now that he is an X-Men, he can run the new recruit side scheme, so he can get that 4 thwarts and null on the board pretty quickly, and then you teamwork a null and you have like 6, 7 thwart that it's readying you. Kind of overkill, could be strong in multiplayer. So that's just one Cable idea, but this other Cable idea here is really nice, because now Children of the Atom gets him access to Shadowcat Ally, who blanks all the icons on a side scheme, so he can throw down Live Dangerously and then play Shadowcat. and that blanks all the icons, and he still gets to keep the +2 hand size, and now you can run Mutant Mayhem at the same time. So you get to bounce Shadowcat back to hand, plus another ally of your choice, whoever you want. A lot of good targets there. So keep bouncing Shadowcat, keep blanking, live dangerously, getting +2 hand size every single turn. This is a very cool little Cable combo that I think is fairly unique to him, because he can grab Live Dangerously out of Aspect, which still gives him access to Mutant Mayhem and Shadowcat. So a little 4-card combo here, maybe a little bit slow to set up, but I'm sure it scales exponentially in multiplayer. So if you're playing 4-player and you're doing this, then okay, yeah, good game, everybody. That's even better than Maria Hill looping. You're giving everybody 8 cards, 2 cards per player instead of 1 card per player. So yeah, really cool Cable idea there. I guess I just want to reiterate one other Cable idea that we talked about earlier in the video, which is that Children of the Atom gives Cable access to Magik in aggression aspect, which makes him, which is just another way to clear strife. If you're running like Vivian, which I was doing back when Cable first dropped, just to try to get around Cable's incredibly hard Shadows of the Past, Magik is like another little glue piece you can just throw in your deck, and now hey, if you happen to have Strife out, Magik just throws him right back in. And Sunfire, who Cable already had access to, but now can run with Children of the Atom and Utopia or something like that. The energy is something that Grey Malkin hits easily. So just a nice little X-Men package that Children of the Atom assists quite a bit. And yeah, makes his Nemesis set just slightly easier to handle in aggression. Alright, Psylocke is a hero that I think Children of the Atom affects a great deal. I think one of the limiting factors that she has is that she doesn't have a lot of good ways to ready. She has her one-time defend and ready Indomitable card, and she has her signature ally Angel, but she has big stats and very few ways to ready, and Children of the Atom kind of breaks that wide open because it gives her access to Utopia, and it gives her access to Professor X's ready ability. And of course, she was already Professor X looping with Cerebro using, if you guys haven't seen this yet, you shuffle Professor X back into your deck from your discard with her Alter Ego ability, and then grab him immediately with Cerebro and just play him right down and get a free Confuse. Or in this case, you can flip up and then get a ready from him, or you get a Confuse and a ready from Utopia. And you can do the same thing here with Mirage. Now, previously, Psylocke was one of the best bases for the Uncanny X-Force deck, and I think she still is really good. But Uncanny X-Force has a really neat interaction with Mirage, where you can play her, and she's going to get boosted by Uncanny X-Force, and you can even play Danger Room and get a Danger Room training. And now Mirage is getting boosted both by Uncanny X-Force and Danger Room training. So she's entering play with 4 thwart, and that's gonna stun pretty much every single villain in the game that does not have some kind of attachment. I actually can't think of a single 4 thwart. There might be one, but let me know in the comments. I can definitely rattle off some 3. Sorry, not thwart. Some 3 scheme. I just can't think of any 4 scheme right now. But yeah, so Mirage with Uncanny X-Force and Danger Room training, and again, you can shuffle Mirage back in because she's psionic with her Alter Ego ability, and pull her back out with Cerebro. So this is pretty much a combo that's always online as soon as you get Children of the Atom down. So that's really cool. Now, one neat thing is that team building exercise opens up a ton for her if she's running a Utopia-based deck to get some use out of these readies, because there are so many psionic X-Men characters right now. So either she can run X-Force characters like Cable, who's also psionic, so she can discount team building exercise, or she could discount these psionic characters with team building exercise, and they're still X-Force for Uncanny X-Force, this kind of thing. So it really opens up team building exercise for her, I think. Phoenix can do something similar. There's just fewer strong X-Force allies that Phoenix would want to include. She can run her son Cable, but I think there's also diminishing returns just because Phoenix is already such a strong thwarter, and it's her damage that she really needs help with. That I think Psylocke is going to be the better base for this style of deck. So something she also previously didn't have access to is Stepford Cuckoos. Psylocke has a good bit of control with her, let's see, what's that one event? Telepathic Suggestion can cancel when revealed effects, and then Stepford Cuckoos can just reroll and counter cards altogether. Now, she could previously only grab this with build support, but she usually likes to grab Cerebro off of build support. But now, with Children of the Atom, she can just play Stepford Cuckoos outright, and she can use team building exercise and her free resources to do so. So yeah, lots of good Danger Room targets here. M is another one that Danger Room can boost, and then she instantly defeats minion. Phoenix can ready Professor X, can ready Legion, this kind of thing, can ready Cable. And she can also just run all the cheap allies and Utopia, and just like coast off of her big, base stats, which Psylocke loves. So I think this is like one really solid way to build her. Now, if you ignore all the leadership stuff I just talked about, she can also run Gunboat Diplomacy pretty strong, especially with Danger Room training and mission training. Once again, sorry, Danger Room and mission training. She can grab Professor X, grab a mission training. Now he's at 4 thwart, and Psylocke is at 3 thwart, and they both exhaust for Gunboat Diplomacy. Now, this is something she doesn't necessarily need Children of the Atom for, but it does give her extra access to other X-Men allies as well, or even just X-Force. Now she can do Gunboat Diplomacy just between herself and Pete Wisdom, and Pete Wisdom can now get a mission training. So there you go. He can't really get Danger Room unless you play an honorary on yourself, and I think that's like one of the key things for these X-Force heroes is that they can play X-Force Recruit on themselves in hero form, and that's going to give them the X-Men trait and alter ego, which is going to keep on your Uncanny X-Men, it's going to keep on your Utopia, it's going to keep on any allies that have play only if you're X-Force or X-Men. If you have an honorary on yourself, now you can play them in alter ego as well. So I do think X-Force Recruit is going to be a card that we see on the rise in terms of deck building for these heroes. But yeah, just neat little stuff all around here with Psylocke. I think she gets a lot out of this card. And it's not too difficult for her to play. All right, Angel is an interesting one for Children of the Atom, but not too much, because his dominant trait is definitely the aerial trait on him. He gets so much value out of his events and just form changing, and he's got really good sustainability that a lot of my Angel decks actually don't run too deep of an ally lineup, X-Force or X-Men. Now, where this might start to change with Children of the Atom is that Psylocke gains the X-Men trait, and Cannonball gains the X-Men trait, which means that they get access to the training upgrades, which is really strong. The extra health doesn't really help out Cannonball because he should be taking 0 consequential anyways, but the extra attack definitely does. And Psylocke, her ability only triggers off attacking, so she doesn't have a ton of synergy with like Uncanny X-Force, and neither does Cannonball really, because the minus consequential doesn't help him, but she does gain a lot out of the extra hit points from attack training. You don't need to use her ability in angel form very much. You can just camp out and always use her when you flip to Archangel for that turn and get an extra ready out of her Archangel form. And just boosts her attack a little bit so that she becomes a little bit more productive in terms of the board state. So yeah, there's not a lot for Angel here. There are a couple aerial X-Men allies that Children of the Atom can make easier to play. You always get team building exercise for those, but Utopia, like he's not really a ready focused hero in the same way that like Psylocke is getting a ton of value out of Utopia with her big stats. He's got 2 thwart in his angel form, and and in how do I get to the other form here? I forget how to. Is it shift? Nope. I have no idea. For some reason, I can't change him to his Archangel form. His Archangel form, I think he's only got 2 attack. So it's not like he's got a 3 stat line like Psylocke does. So as building around Utopia, it's going to be a super strong baseline, but I don't think it's that much stronger than just going into aerial for him. where it's worth experimenting, I think, is just trainings on Psylocke and Cannonball, because you can't do honorary X-Men, so this is something that Children of the Atom specifically allows that was not available before, at least in solo play. So Angel, neat little combos here. Cannonball, Psylocke, they love the training cards, don't they? Alright, Deadpool is a pretty interesting one. I think he is another one that's they were trying to restrict a little bit the number of readies that he had access to, just to make some of the costs on his cards feel more present. Like Chimichanga Truck gives him a ready, but only after he recovers. Exhausting Personality is going to exhaust him, so it makes it harder if you use it and then you flip down, you can't exhaust for Chimichanga Truck, that kind of thing. Well, Utopia solves both of those things, and quite easily, I might add. Just running a bunch of cheap 2-cost allies, and Utopia, just like everything that Children of the Atom now gives you access to. Triage, kind of good for him if you can't recover, or if you just need a couple more health to pitch into Yoo-Hoo or something like that before you flip and Chimichanga. So Triage is nice for him. Gambit is nice just to make sure you don't get a boost card that's going to kill you in Alter Ego or something like that. And then Cable with Danger Room, which he's going to have access to a lot thanks to his constant damage and flipping. Cable now gets access to your training. So Cable, what can you get up to? So he gets up to 5 thwart and 6 attack with a Danger Room training on him, which is like absolutely crazy. Now you run some game times, and you've got a nice Voltroned out Cable ally. He gets Cerebro access and Alter Ego with constant flipping. He gets X-Mansion access. If he puts a X-Force Recruit on himself, then he can even heal himself with X-Mansion. Or no, sorry, he's already a mutant, so he can still heal himself with X-Mansion. But I think the bigger synergy here is he gets access to Mutant Education, which is like one of my favorite combos for Deadpool. You just put back Exhausting Personality, or Meta Knowledge, or Yoo-Hoo, or one of his stronger cards, Montage, this kind of thing, and you pull it right back with his Alter Ego. Although his Alter Ego can't pull Montage, it's just the events, but Exhausting Personality, Yoo-Hoo, Meta Knowledge, a lot of his strongest events he can pull after he puts them back in with Mutant Education. So, and this can also heal Cable now that Cable is an X-Man thanks to Children of the Atom. He does get Stepford Cuckoo's access now without having to waste build support on it, and that can help him a lot with not insta-losing, which is something that he really struggles with. I think it was Meggy Dolodyne had like a really cool Deadpool deck that utilized Black Widow to kind of prevent death, and now he has a much more expensive but aspect agnostic version in Children of the Atom and Stepford Cuckoos. He also gets Beast plus Utopia, grabbing Montage. Now you can always play Beast pre-Children of the Atom, but now he gets some extra benefits through Utopia from it. And Mutant Mayhem. You can always Mutant Mayhem, full heal Cable, get Beast, get a Montage, play another ally like Gambit, or Mutant Mayhem, Gambit, and Beast, this kind of thing. So yeah, there you have it. Utopia is helping out another hero who seems to be balanced around a lack of readies, now giving him one of the best readies in the game. You get to Voltron, one of the stronger signature allies in the game with some of the highest stats. You get access to your Stepford Cuckoos, your I'm never going to lose this game card, and then yeah, just some really neat interactions with Deadpool. There is one interaction I'm leaving out in particular because I know that there is a deck builder who's been working on it. And I'm really excited for you guys to see it, and I'll definitely make a video on that deck in the future. But yeah, be on the lookout for that deck. It utilizes Children of the Atom really well. It utilizes Utopia that we talked about. And yeah, just a very neat idea for Deadpool, who I think is like a little bit underrated of a character. For these next two, I'm moving over to Marvel CDB, just because I already put the decks together. So Domino is maybe one of the most helped heroes by getting access to Utopia, and it's just another trend of here's a hero that seems to have been limited in its access to readies that is getting one of the best unrestricted readies in the game. So with Children of the Atom, I've got it shortened here as Coda, you can get access to Utopia, and with all of your X-Men allies, even Wolfsbane, triggering Utopia. Now you're getting multiple uses out of Probability Field, one of her stronger cards, which is giving her anywhere from 1 to 3 extra base power. So like if she does a Probability Field, she makes a basic attack for 2, she hits Jackpot, now she's attacking for 5, you play an ally, you ready with Utopia, and maybe hit Jackpot again for another 5. So that's just an insane amount of damage, like half of a villain stage, just from playing an ally, and you haven't really spent much of your hand, and the ally hasn't activated yet, and you still have more domino tricks. Now she loves Wolfsbane, of course, and Wolfsbane is super helped out by access to X Mansion. Now Domino loves Legion. If you saw the Every Hero, Every Aspect aggression deck using Legion from TJJJ, then you saw that she loves Legion. Legion loves emission training. Wolfsbane loves emission training. Husk loves emission training, and Husk is pretty good with Jackpot or any of her wilds just as a resource dump at the end of the turn. If you have some stuff that you don't really have a good use for, you just pitch it into Husk, that kind of thing. Yeah, Game Time, Power of Justice, really play into Husk, Legion, Wolfsbane. All of them are able to be healed by X Mansion. This is running at 50 cards. But the way that she cycles through her deck, it's not even that bad. And the X-Force Recruit here is the secret sauce to keep her as an X-Men in Alter Ego, because sometimes Probability Field, you can use that twice to recover. And you play an ally ready off Utopia and do that kind of thing. Cerebro is here because we have good Alter Ego access thanks to Dazzler and Gambit here. And Blindfold, Dazzler, Gambit, Blindfold, those are our Alter Ego sources. So we can always Cerebro and grab some of these allies. Now if you saw my How to Play Nightcrawler video where we intentionally deck ourselves out so that we can pull something out of our deck, this works insanely well for Domino as well. Let's say you don't have Dazzler and you can't grab her because she's not the top part of your discard. Well, you can purposefully deck yourself out using some kind of mill effect, Weapon X, or what have you, and then draw her straight up with the Cerebro. Or you can just store her under Painted Lady. If she gets milled, flip down, and you have access to a Confuse like that. This kind of thing. There's all sorts of like crazy Domino shenanigans I could go on and on about, but I thought this was a really cool idea, just the fact that she gets Utopia and it gives her multiple activations Probability Field, which I'm sure so many players have been dying to get multiple Probability Field triggers in the same turn, and now she just has like a really regular way to get that. Okay, and then last but not least, X-23. I mean, what's to be said about X-23 with Children of the Atom? Maybe the single biggest buff from all of the affected heroes. And why do I say that? Well, Children of the Atom gives her access to Uncanny X-Men, which some X-23 decks are already running, because it just gives a flat +1 health to Honey Badger. But now she gets access to the -1 cost on Honey Badger. Now if you have Sisterhood in play, you can pitch a card to get Honey Badger to hand, and then you can play that same Honey Badger for 1 cost thanks to Uncanny X-Men. So we just played Honey Badger for 2 resources. She comes into play, she readies you with Utopia. And then she triggers, she makes a basic power, triggering her ability, readies you again. And you can do this just about every turn. Now, I'm not super keen on a lot of the Voltron Honey Badger decks, just because her obligation can come and steal her at any time, and I don't think there's a way to remove it from the game. It just always discards itself, so it just keeps coming back up at inopportune moments. So I like being able to cycle Honey Badger as much as I can, and this deck does that. Let me tell you. You grab Honey Badger immediately with Sisterhood, you play her immediately with Uncanny X-Men, you get that immediate ready off of Utopia, and then another ready. Yeah, I'm not running the basic doubles because look at this cost curve. I find that instead of the basic doubles, what I really like to use with X-23 is actually assess the situation, and the main reason is pain tolerance. The more X-23 cards that you play every turn, the more healing you're going to be doing. So assess the situation gives you a higher chance of having a lot of X-23 cards in your hand the following turn, which is not only good to trigger Sisterhood, but gets you extra healing from Pain Tolerance. And of course, when you play Honey Badger, you get a heal off of Pain Tolerance. So doing the Sisterhood Uncanny X-Men loop, you're doing a lot of healing with Pain Tolerance here. Now we do have the rest of our ally lineup. Forge helps you get Utopia as quickly as you can. Build Support helps get out Uncanny X-Men or Sisterhood or Utopia or Weapon X. Triage can heal you or can heal Honey Badger, and then Beak counts Honey Badger. Pixie can even get you Honey Badger back without using Sisterhood, or Pixie gets you back like Beak, Forge, that kind of thing. Phoenix, the new ally from Magneto's pack, seems perfect for Honey Badger. She's a built-in game time, which we're already running 3 game time in a Danger Room training, but just built-in game time here. Now you have 2 Adrenaline Rush, just because you stack those and you have a Mega Turn, and of course if you use Sisterly Bond, the extra attack from Adrenaline Rush goes into Honey Badger's activation as well. So yeah, this seems just like a very strong case for Children of the Atom, giving X-23 the X-Men trait so that she can keep Uncanny X-Men on board. Now, I used to be running 2 times X-Force recruits in all of my X-23 decks, one for her, one for Honey Badger, but I've dropped it down to 1 time because now we only need to put it on X-23 to keep Uncanny X-Men on for the entire game. So yeah, there you have it. This is maybe like one of the bigger buffs that Children of the Atom is getting us in the game. Yeah, I think my favorites out of all of these are the X-Force heroes, X-23, Looping, Sisterhood, and Uncanny X-Men getting Honey Badger back every single turn. I love Domino getting extra access to Probability Field from Utopia. I love Deadpool getting trainings for his Cable ally. That's super cool. I love Psylocke getting all sorts of good stuff. Utopia with Professor X, Mirage with Danger Room, and Uncanny X-Force. That's something that I don't think was possible previously. Angel is maybe the most disappointing, but I think he's the one who relies the most on his alternate trait. And then Cable, of course, with the Shadowcat bounce using Mutant Mayhem and keeping the pool side scheme in play. What was it? Live dangerously all game long, especially for multiplayer. So I think the X-Force heroes are really the ones who are coming out on top with Children of the Atom. Well, there you have it, folks. This card is kind of a game changer. I avoided any discussion about like how reliable is this going to be, because it is, 1 cost. You want to get it out before your combo. If you draw into your combo pieces first, they're not as good. But with the amount of deck cycling and the amount of card draw we have now, it should be okay. You can always run extra copies if you want, 2 copies, 3 copies, that kind of thing to boost your consistency. Everybody around the table can play it on each other, all the way in multiplayer. But the focus of this video is just to show you kind of what is out there, what is possible. Get your own creative juices flowing, and let me know what were some of your favorite ideas, anything that you thought of that you think should be added to this this glossary of Children of the Atom, basically. Do you like that this is how they're ending the mutant waves? Do you not like it? Have you been satisfied with the last 3 waves? I don't know. Reach out to me. Let me know. I'm always happy to talk about this game. So that's the overview of deck building with Children of the Atom.